Hello everyone. In this video, I'd like to give a glimpse of the projects that will appear in Scratch Builder October. Welcome to my channel, everyone. I am MJ. I will be your host, and in today's video, I just want to show some of the projects that I've been working on. My patrons have already seen a glimpse of this, and now I would like to show the channel some of the things that are going to come up in Scratch Builder October. So before I do that, I want to give a big thanks to all my patrons. I also want to give a big thanks to all of my subscribers here on YouTube for your views, for your comments, for everything else. Thank you for your support. And a very warm thanks to all who have also purchased Scratch Builder Monthly from Wargames Vault. It really helps the channel a lot. I do use electricity. I use a lot of things here in the channel. So here we are on my primary workbench, and I just want to say scratch building has become a very important part of my hobby, and I'm focusing more and more on scratch building my own models rather than terrain. I already have a good collection of terrain for my games, and so making my own models is kind of my thing now. Now, I never stick to one technique, and I always try a wide variety of different materials. And every month, I usually focus on a specific material. This month, I did a lot of work with craft wood and cardboard. And, well, let's take a look at some of the projects. This month on October Scratch Builder, we will see a number of different projects. One of the projects we will see are these simple and I do say simple, cardboard representations of some Star Wars fighters. Here is my new X-Wing, which I haven't showed yet. And I took a little more time in this build to add some details like the little R2 unit, which I think is a really iconic detail. I used a little bit of Procreate clay for that. Crafters can use green stuff. Milliput, whatever. You don't even need to use clay. You could even use a little blob of hot glue, but I do recommend that you do it in a separate piece of cardboard. And once it dries up, you can actually peel it off the cardboard with an X-Acto knife and use it as the little R2 unit. But for those people that work with green stuff or whatever, it's a great little thing. You just do a little blob for the R2 unit. Now, the difference here from previous models that I was making like this is that I added canopy details to the front, and I will probably add some canopy detail to the side as well. There's these little details on the front of the laser cannon, but this is built with simplicity in mind. Now, with clay, you have better control of your shapes for the fuselage, and these older models used clay and cardboard as a way of building them, but they do take a long time. This one took me about 40 minutes only because I was exploring the shapes and all that stuff. But I can probably make these in about 30 minutes a piece. Here are the templates. These are the primary template out of these little pieces. Okay, and by replicating these little pieces, that's how I come up with one of these. And we're going to explore B-Wings, A-Wings, TIE Fighters, a whole bunch of different models and see what works where. TIE Fighters are going to be a lot trickier, I think, but I have an idea in mind that may help. These are a lot easier to build. Now, here is this flight stand, right? I developed a new flight stand, the L-shaped one. And this flight stand is a little bit better, I think. And it utilizes, there's a little hole back there. It utilizes the rear of the craft. Just insert it. And this allows me to actually bank the fighter. And you know that in Star Wars, one of the things is, of course, the fighters are zipping around and, very World War II style. That's what a lot of people don't like about the space battles, and I totally get that. But it is kind of cool to watch, and in the models, the sort of lollipop style stand, while effective, is very static, right? Whereas this provides a little motion. Look at that. The fighter's just banking away. And so we can even, do that. So it's a new little flight stand, and you do have to paint everything black. And once you paint the fighter and the fighter stands out, then I don't mind this as much. You can also use many transparent materials like the tip of a fork if you want to use a more transparent material. But the idea is that you do build your flight stand that way. And I may actually do that for the capital ships as well. And yeah, it just provides some interesting motion to your ships. Cardboard Navy ships. Now, I do enjoy Navy ship games. I've played Great War at Sea, which is a hex war game. I don't play historical war games as much. I'm more of I prefer my fantasy, my fiction. So when I play my Navy ship games, it's usually a very fictitious game, something like Dystopian Wars. I also use Uncharted Seas. Those rules are very, very simple when compared to other Navy games. And so I do a lot of Navy ship scratch building. These are cardboard, and this month, in the upcoming month, we're going to look at building a small squadron of destroyers the simple way. Okay, very simple. These 3 models took about half hour to make, and they have to be painted. And we are using very basic cardboard shapes and ideas. And we also have this large battleship, which is a little more complex. But I will show some of the things that go into building this. Now, this uses paper fasteners for the turrets. It can be built very simple. For those of you guys, whoever of you likes the idea of fictitious Navy games, this is a good way to make some simpler ships. Cardboard compared to foam. I may, depending on the time that I have, because I'm already writing the magazine and I only have a limited space, time to get everything written up. But I would like to write an article about comparing these 2 materials. Here is the hull and structure for a foam-built cruiser, and this is the finished cardboard cruiser. Wooden starships. That's going to be a major project this month. This is a whole fleet done with nothing but craft wood. Craft wood, a little bit of wire. You have seen these ships in my little shorts that I've done recently. And these are all constructed by cutting little shapes of wood and layering. There's that, little technique again, layering. I use it in a lot of different ways. And these ships, surprisingly, took very little time. They really did. And here's a frigate, and here's another frigate. We have 3 of them. They're different shapes, and I use the clothespins in different ways. Now, this method relies a lot on paint, because right now the ships have a base coat, but then we start to provide different shades of paint to add even more like 2-dimensional detail. Okay, so this technique relies a little bit on paint, and you're using the shape of the wood, of the clothespins in different sizes to make your vehicles. Here is another faction that I'm starting, and this one's almost finished, and I almost have 2 fleets complete with this technique. So this took very little time. It was like 3 days to do the fleet, which isn't bad, and that's only working an hour or 2 hours a day, which is really, really not bad because some of my ship projects, like my clay ships, took a lot longer than that, at least a week for the whole fleet, okay? My foam ships take less time as well. You still have to file, and I recommend cuticle files. You'll see that in the article. When I provide the article, I show how I built 2 of the capital ships, and you'll get an idea how I built the little ships as well. This is a great technique, and I like the way the ships come out. They're really not bad. They're a little bit large in scale, but not bad. I'm also going to discuss in the article fleet creation. How do I decide what ship is what, and what is my starter fleet? This has been a very interesting project, and I have shown that you can do things like tanks with clothespins, okay, in the past. I have shown that. So we are going to experiment with this a little closer. Lastly is paper models. All I'm going to say, these won't, I'm just going to provide pictures of these in Scratch Builder Monthly. I want to make a point about these. These were made only by using Microsoft Paint. These are very old. These were made years ago. I mean, like at least 10 years ago, if not a little bit more. And these have survived all this time. I've taken care of these because I use Microsoft Paint and I don't use any form of specialized software. So it's kind of the hard way of doing things. But basically, I give this credit because while doing this, I learned a lot about geometry. I had to figure out, first of all, have a design in my head, and then figure out in my head how each of those geometric shapes is going to be represented on Microsoft Paint, and how would they be folded. And so I would do all the little like tabs and all of that by hand, and it was a lot of trial and error. And then I would print them out and then assemble them and see what worked and what didn't work. And these are my surviving models, so I keep these as an example. The point I want to make is that by doing these the hard way, in other words, by not using specialized software, but so I give a lot of credit to this part of my building career because of that, because it really gave me a lot of training in visualizing things. Not all cardboard is created equal. That's going to be an article in Scratch Builder in October, and basically we discussed the different layers of corrugated cardboard, also the different sizes for the corrugation, and what all these different layers can be used for. They can be used for different things on different models. And in conclusion, you can do a lot of things with cardboard. You can make simpler models. You can make more complex models. You can make almost any vehicle you want. And the idea this month, and the idea with this month's Scratch Builder, and to some extent last month's, is to find simpler ways of representing some of these Scratch builds. Simpler ways that still work and that can be put on the tabletop, and you can still enjoy whatever game it is you want to enjoy. And with respect to tools, this month you'll probably see pictures of the hot glue guns that I use, and more importantly, concentrating on the tips of the hot glue guns, because not all hot glue guns are the same. Some have temperature. You can adjust the temperature to low or high. Others have very wide tips. Others have very fine tips that you can use for finer work. And there it is, folks. My patrons and members usually get first updates on these projects, but I do eventually bring it to the channel because I want to share it with everyone. And basically what I am discussing in this video is just the things that you should see in Scratch Builder Monthly. I'm going to be very busy next week trying to finish the document. I produce these documents with a combination of Canva and Word, and Canva has been great to use. It really makes the document look more professional, more interesting. I will be providing a lot of tips. I'm taking a lot of notes during all of these builds, and the notes will reflect things like, what kinds of adhesives I use. You will probably see photos with lists of materials and tools. You're going to see a lot of pictures of tools and different materials that I use. And another thing that I'm doing that I may do for future scratch builders is provide a blow up picture. I usually do this with diagrams that I do by hand on Microsoft Paint, but I think it's also important to just show a blow up picture of all the parts, or at least the most important parts to get you started. There's a lot of fine details and stuff that I don't know when they're coming up. I'm actually making this up as I go along. But the main parts of, say, the X-Wing build, they will all be photographed, and they're all photographed together in groups of how they go together. So all the wing parts are in one little group, all the fuselage parts in another little group, etc. So you will see those kinds of changes in future scratch builders as well. And very important, I want to be able to discuss a little bit more, again, my ideas, my opinions. Folks, you have a good one. Thank you for all your support. This goes for everybody, my YouTube viewers, my patrons, everyone on Facebook, and anyone who has purchased the magazine from Wargames Vault. Thank you all for your support. See you soon, and we'll talk in the next video.